Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. So it's Saturday, and that means we are doing thumbs up and thumbs down. And with me, of course, is Peter, and I'm dying to know what are his thumbs ups and thumbs down for the week. So first of all, what's your thumbs up, Peter?
Temporary civility. And I want to stress temporary, okay? So far, knock on wood, Emmy Connie Barrett is not getting the Kavanaugh treatment, at least not on the scale that Kavanaugh got it. The kind of snobby, snotty, elitist approach to her was really stomach turning for me in a very different way than it was stomach turning against Brett Kavanaugh. I mean, here is a person. I mean, I don't know all of her views, and I'm very critical of how the Supreme Court deals with commerce, and she may have I may have some issues with her on that issue. But here, I find it really kabuki theater, because here are these really second-rate minds, these Democrats. I mean, and they truly are second-rate. I mean, these are beta people, okay? That's why they're in politics, okay? Because that's the only way they know how to make money. It's called the grift, okay? And here's this woman that didn't go to an Ivy League school. She sat there with a blank notepad, unflappable, and rung circles around these lawyers, okay? I thought it was so majestic. Okay, it was truly an interesting experience to watch, because they came after her. It was like one of those Bruce Lee films, when all the guys come up and try to karate him down. Okay, and she just took on one after another. Threw this one over here, threw this one over here, and says, "Let's do it again." Okay, no, it was grace, and it's something we haven't seen on the public airways for so very long. And thinking, here's a woman that's, so amazingly accomplished, and it seems to me, I don't know 100% of her biography, but she's not part of the system. She actually, just by her own abilities and intellect, made it to the pinnacle of her profession. So I think that's really extraordinary. That's the kind of merit, not the merit of famous sons of former vice presidents. That's not merit, okay? So her merit and the way how she got to where she is, I think everyone should be very proud of and emulate. And at 48, who knows? So maybe some president will appoint her chief justice one day, because looks like she's in good health. It looks like she's going to be there for a very long time. So conditional civility is my thumbs up.
Well, I think, yeah, conditional is right, because with the Democrats, one never knows whether they're not hiding some weapon that they will unleash, just as the vote is about to be taken in the committee to send it out to the full floor of the Senate. They may have something on her. I don't know. Probably not at this stage, but one can't exactly rule this out. Trump chose very shrewdly. I mean, by choosing a woman, it essentially ended the sexist rape possible argument, because it's now almost a guarantee that if the moment you choose a man for a position on the Supreme Court, they're going to be the Democrats are going to be going through the sexual history of the man, and they're going to find something, some sexual harassment complaint, some complaint at an adolescent party 40 years ago.
Even your browser history will be next.
Your browser history. So luckily, with a woman, I mean, that's much less likely to happen. Not impossible, but less likely. And she also adopted two Haitian children. So that removes the racist charge. Again, hard to make the case that she's a racist, given that she's basically adopted two black children. So that I think contributed to the civility. That the Democrats didn't quite know how to come at her effectively. So after a very aggressive start, they reverted to a kind of very civil discourse, full of politeness towards her, giving her due credit, even as they say we're not going to vote for you. Again, simply on the grounds that they don't like the outcomes that she will vote on, not on her merits. I mean, after all, you're supposed to vote, is this person qualified? I mean, has this person shown himself or herself to be a sound and intelligent judge? They went. That's not even under consideration.
We've gone so far away from advice and consent, as it says in the Constitution. I mean, Lindsey Graham, I mean, Lindsey Graham for me is this, he's like a bizarre duality. With the Kavanaugh case, I really admired what Lindsey Graham did. But, his foreign policy, he's the evil Lindsey Graham. Okay, so, but, I mean, he did say, and particularly during the Kavanaugh case, he mentioned Supreme Court judge nominees that he didn't have any kind of ideological union with, but he voted for them because it's advice and consent. Can they do the job? Okay, and we're so far away from that. And I think maybe the younger generation has no idea that that was the case only a few short years ago, and that's completely gone.
Yes. No, I think so. I think the point that he made was that a president gets to choose his justices, and so he said, I voted for Sotomayor, I voted for Kagan, because those are the justices that a duly elected president, namely Obama, is entitled to choose. That's what he's going to do. That a Democratic president is going to pick these kinds of judges, just like Clinton chose Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So it's kind of ridiculous to just, I'm going to vote against these judges because I don't like the president, and so I'm just going to vote against them. But that's not really what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go by, are they qualified, and leave aside, the political leaning of the president who nominated them. Okay,
my thumbs down. A very predictable, I'm afraid, is the media. There's a huge political scandal raging right now that involves one of the presidential candidates. I'm going to speak in euphemisms here again. I think everybody understands why. But just this dual justice system, the associates of the politician's son one has been convicted and another one is already in prison, and the son is not touched. Okay, why? We need to know that. Why? We should know that, particularly if public office is using to ingratiate someone in a private way. There's nothing wrong with asking that question. Okay, so you have a completely uninterested liberal media. Okay, and that's truly astounding. It's hard to comprehend how much more it can be compromised. Okay, and I think now you have generations of people now that don't expect any news anymore from the media. Okay, and that's really sad too. I mean, everyone, what has been done in the name of ideology is that you are forced to live in a media bubble, in a groupthink bubble. And if you try to get out of it, you will be, it's sacrilegious. Okay, it's like being an apostate or something like that. And so there's this weird capture phenomenon going on. See, that's the difference for you living in Budapest, me living in Moscow. We're not in these bubbles. I mean, to some degree are, because we have to watch the media, but we have a distance from it. And I can look at things with fresh eyes and just see the absurdity of so much of what's going on here. And it is done in the name of ideology, and it's really crushing our sense of reality, and all for political points. And so the media is failing us. And I don't see any way around it except for people to come to podcasts like this, because we're just going to call balls and strikes. We don't have a party affiliation on this channel. We have preferences, and we always show those preferences. Okay, but I don't deny that there is another side of looking at them, or other sides, multiple sides, and looking at an issue here. The mainstream media doesn't allow that to happen, and it's because it's journalists that are policing other journalists. That's it. We mentioned that Politico writer in a previous video. And basically he has to genuflect to the maddening crowd. Okay, you cannot think on your own. You cannot think singularly. You must think for the collective.
Well, the thing is also that what used to be the case with journalism is that you did maintain a distinction. I mean, it wasn't a hard distinction, obviously, but you did try to maintain a distinction between news and editorializing. Nowadays, you pick up the New York Times and you're reading a story on the front page about the presidential election, and it's all editorializing. It is all saying, this claim is false and has been debunked. This is clearly a news story about Donald Trump. And then if you have a story about his rival, Biden, those little caveats, such as it's been debunked, are absent. So there's no attempt to actually do news. You're supposed to report the news. You leave the editorializing to the editorial pages. But that's just completely gone. And so what happened, essentially, it started when in the coverage of foreign affairs. In coverage of foreign affairs, when you're describing, whether something in the Soviet Union or you're describing Milosevic or Saddam Hussein, it's always editorializing. You always believed every single allegation. You never believed anything that was said by the government. That has just sort of crept in to the newspaper's domestic coverage. And so now you can't read about any domestic event without essentially the reporter offering his opinions rather than just simply the facts. And I think that basically that's what the media has become. That we really don't have anything like reporters.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, I guess we're kind of this. I think you read the New York Times and Washington Post more than I do. I mean, if there's a story, let's say a story related to Iraq or something like that, and in the New York Times and Washington Post reports on me, what I do is I go to antiwar.com, I go to Moon of Alabama, I go to some specific writers at the American Conservative, and I'll read their stuff, and then I will look at the New York Times thing, okay? Because I have no faith in those publications whatsoever, zero. Okay, I know that they're pitching their own spin here, and these other sources that I met are, they may have a certain bias. Sometimes I see it, but it's not. It doesn't jump out at you. Okay, and of course the American Conservative, of course, that's what it's called. Okay, it's conservative. Conservative, non-neocon conservative, or what I love the phrase paleocon. I think that's a really cool description. Okay, so yeah, I mean, and the media has all itself to blame. Okay, that's it. Okay, I mean, they have, I think, people hold them in lower esteem than Congress. That's saying so much.
Yes, yeah, and that's right. And what we've had this week, particularly in this scandal, they showed themselves to be not in the business of news. This wasn't news. I mean, if you don't like the news, do what you can. Do the reporting that you should do in order to refute it. Question the facts, challenge the facts. You're open to that. But you don't, instead of that, just simply say this is all Putin's disinformation. And what's your basis for saying it's Putin's disinformation? Well, intelligence and security officials who spoke off the record told us this. What kind of reporting is that?
No. We can end on this here. Our viewers should know is that for the main broadsheets and in some cases very obvious contributors on cable TV, they're stenographers for the Defense Department. Okay, I mean essentially they're just the conduit to print or onto broadcasts. And they probably change the text very, very little. They just deliver what the powers that be want. It's the worst in the national when it comes to national security coverage. They are the worst, okay, and they're the laziest and probably least intelligent. They just take everything at face value because they get access. Who knows what other perks they get? Okay. A lot of these people are quite wealthy. One has to wonder why.
And I would just add as a a PS, and which goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that if you look at, they've already issued the 6 topics that will be covered in the next week's presidential debate. The moderator will be a mainstream reporter for MSNBC. The topics are fighting COVID, American families, race in America, climate change, then national security, which could mean anything, and leadership. Now, notice what's missing here. No discussion on foreign policy, no discussion on trade, no discussion on immigration, no discussion on the economy.
How Trump won
in
2016.
But we'll talk about race in America, and you can be sure the reporter will ask once again, bravely, do you renounce David Duke? And are you against white supremacy?
The interesting thing is
now rely on reporters.
When you look at the how journalists approach Trump and to Biden, is that they're asking questions that their group, their milieu, as they say, are interested in. They're not interested in what the public the public itself is interested in. I would say healthcare, immigration, stimulus. Okay. According to the recent a large Gallup poll that I'm trying to remember correctly, I think came out immediately before Trump had COVID, is that like Russia and China were at the very, very bottom. Okay, but healthcare and I think education, because kids can't get to school. I mean, but see, for the journalist managerial class, none of these things affect them. They lived in their gated community. Maybe they have bodyguards. Maybe they're picked up and taken to work with a chauffeur. Of course, they have no idea how people live. See, journalists used to be very different. But see, they want to become part of the managerial class, and they have. They've become part of the managerial class, and they want to keep that prestige and that power and the affluence. I mean, when you and I were growing up, it was something you had to have a deep commitment to, because you didn't make a lot of money in journalism. Right. Now you can make a lot.
That's right. And you're absolutely right. They want to be part of an elite, as they say, managerial elite, and they tend to sympathize with politicians who identify themselves with that elite. That's why they were in love with Barack Obama and were in love with Bill Clinton. Leave aside all his embarrassing sexual shenanigans, but they were in love with Bill Clinton because he was the spokesman and leader of this managerial elite that they desperately want to be a part of. And Trump he's not a part of that elite. He hates that elite, and he's still a boy from Queens. And to them, it just riles them that a person like that, who challenges their status, is the president.
Yep. They for them, we're all deplorables.
That's it. Well, thank you very much, Peter. And next week we'll be back, of course, with our thumbs up and thumbs down. So thank you very much. See you soon. Bye.